Hey everybody, so today she is attempting to salvage some audio from a couple weeks ago where she talks about a true crime, but then she realized when she was editing it that she told the story all messed up, got all of her facts wrong, so she ends up redoing it again. So a lot of what she's talking about just doesn't make sense. So basically it's, you know, a snafu. Situation normal, all effed up. Yeah, that's how she goes. Yeah. So if you're not into crime, skip this one because trigger warnings. Yeah, okay. It's the Christopher Watts case. Okay. Bye guys. She does give some just general life updates before she gets into the true crime thing. So there's a little bit you can watch, but she'll announce when she's switching over. Okay.
Well, hello everybody. It's Saturday night, still June 22nd. Brian went to bed, and I'm taking advantage of this to test out the microphone. Here's my whip. Working on C Melody tonight. I've got the TV to myself, about to play the most recent episode of Handmaid's Tale. And decided that because I still have the audio recorded for my what I was going to do a while back ago, I've got like 15 minutes of audio and I need something to put it on top of. So I figured, hey, I'll take my microphone and my new tripod and I'll test out all this stuff tonight and see how well it turns out with me just, you know, doing a reenactment of a stick with me. So basically I'll record the video and throw the audio from like 2 weeks ago over the top of it. Nobody will ever know the difference. So what's new with me in the last several days since I went missing for a while? Well, let's see here. Jesse's decided that he wants to move out. He wants to live with his girlfriend. So we'll see how well that works. I don't know. I really don't know. I don't think he has a clue how expensive it is to live in Florida. So, we'll see. Plus, I'm a little nervous in that, you know, I've lived with some guys and, you know, it doesn't always work out well. And when you don't have a lot of money to be, you know, taking over leases from other people and having to move if necessary, you might get yourself into a really sticky situation because this is his first real girlfriend. So, I don't know what the odds are of the longevity of the very first girlfriend lasting through a lease. But, you know, call me a pessimist. I've been married twice. And Quinn also has an apartment for the school year, and he's thinking about moving out as well. So it'll be just Brian and I. You know, we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Brian struggles with Quinn being gone. I can't imagine what's going to happen when he has both kids gone. But who knows? Maybe that'll bring us closer together. Maybe he'll have to start diamond painting with me. Who knows? I've exhausted my interest in alien talk for a while, I think. That was quite enough for me. We did watch Ancient Aliens tonight, though. Apparently we're from Mars now. I did, let's see, talked a lot this week to Danette. She was telling me about this cross-stitch store she went to that has this humongous sampler. She said she figured it was probably like 45 inches square, and it's got a tree in the middle, and all the leaves are like clusters of French knots, so much that you can't even see the fabric underneath. I can't even imagine how gorgeous that must be. And talked to Michelle and Michelle's mom a little bit. She was very happy about the video showing her dog beds, and so I was delighted. She's had, I think just recently started her store on Etsy for Happy's doggy beds. But yeah, I can't tell you, it is so beautiful. And oh, Michelle, I love the new pen. It's awesome. I absolutely love it. So between the pen from Annette and the pen from Michelle, I've got 4 of my different placers, and then I have my old Mickey Mouse pen for my single placer. And it's awesome because I only need 3 pens and don't have to switch heads out anymore. Love it. It's awesome. And Michelle, tell me, where did this pen come from? What store did you get it from? Because it's a little different than the other one I have. This one has metal casings inside of the tips, the receptacle where you put your plastic tip. So it's a little bit different. Curious. But it's very, very comfortable. I did spend a couple days reorganizing my craft room, kind of shuffling things around a bit, packing up stuff that I really don't ever use, putting things more accessible that I do use a lot more often. So just kind of farting around in there. I did put all of my cases of the Tic Tac box, my backup leftover drill storage, into those black shoe boxes I got at Michael's, and I think I was able to fit about 6 cases in one shoe box. So between the 4 shoe boxes, I got all of my leftover drills put away with plenty of extra room, because I don't have all the colors yet. Cranking along on my cross stitch. I got very far on that. Anyway, enough of this. Let's get on with the recording from a while back. The latest obsession, and it's over with now, but once I finished watching the entire trial of Timothy Jones, one of my recommended videos or something came up. Actually, I think it was from listening to Morbid. They were bringing it up. The Christopher or Chris Watts case. And I'm sure most of you are familiar with this. I had never heard of it because, again, I don't watch regular TV or the news or any kind of communication with the outside world other than, canned TV programs. And so I started digging into it to find out what it was about. For those of you who are familiar with it, just I'm going to just reiterate for those of you who are like me and don't know anything at all about it. So I have watched tens of hours of videos and listened to audio recordings and all kinds of stuff regarding the case. Available on YouTube is the confession tapes, interrogation, interview, and confession tapes. There's the interview with him after he was convicted from the prison. There's the interview with the girlfriend and interviews with various family members, and footage from the sentencing hearing, and lots of resources to kind of delve into this. And it's all consuming when you want to know everything there is to know. So for those of you who are completely unfamiliar with it, and again, I didn't take any notes, so this is going to be, squirrel mode recap. Well, hey everybody. So it was such a disastrous squirrel cap recap, that I felt it necessary to start all over again. This time I have some notes. So this is the story of the murder of Shanann Watts and her two daughters, Bella and Cece, and her unborn child, I believe Nico was the name that she had picked out for her child that she was about 15 weeks pregnant with. So Chris and Shanann, I believe, had been married for about 8 years. They were originally from North Carolina and had decided to relocate to Colorado. Chris was working for an oil company, kind of on location type job, but he'd be in the office each morning briefly for like updates, team meetings, whatnot. And Shanann had her own home-based business doing direct sales of some sort of patch that supplements diet and other things. I'm not sure the specifics on it. I didn't quite understand that portion. I don't know that's necessarily vital to the story, but Shanann and Chris were a very attractive couple with two very cute little girls. I believe their ages, Bella 4 and Cece 3. And when this all happened, it was June, I believe, of, I think it was even just last year, 2018, if I'm correct. I could be wrong. I think it was fairly recent. Again, squirrel mode with the details. I didn't write down dates. But Shanann's business, again, direct sales, she focused primarily on advertising through Facebook. And so it was like daily life being broadcast to the world, which apparently Chris wasn't particularly comfortable with, but went along with it because she was making a decent living. And that summer, she had decided to go back to North Carolina to visit family, both her family and her in-laws, as well as to try to expand her customer base from Colorado to North Carolina. She planned a 6-week trip, and Chris couldn't get off work for the entire time, so he was to meet them there the last week of this trip. So I guess that would put it, late July that he was to meet up with them. And while they were gone to North Carolina, Shanann began to worry because Chris was less and less responsive to her texts and emails and phone calls, and seemed more and more distant, and a little bit of a lack of connection between the two of them since she had left. And apparently rightfully so, because during that time, Chris had started up a bit of a romantic relationship with a coworker and was spending all of his time there with her, and getting more and more deeply involved with this woman, Nikki. So he ends up going to North Carolina for that last week and supposedly, telling Nikki that he's going to try and patch things up with his wife, with Shannon, and work on his marriage. Yet he's still constantly texting and sexting with Nikki back in Colorado. Their trip comes to an end and they all return back to Colorado, and shortly after that they take a business trip for Shannon's job, I believe, to San Diego for a long weekend or something like that. And apparently during this time now, he has begun sleeping in their basement, no longer sleeping in the master suite with his wife. So Shannon ends up taking another business trip. Clearly she travels a lot for her job, but she takes another business trip with a friend and coworker to Arizona. She gets back very late at night. I think it was around 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. The camera footage from their security system shows her being dropped off. She comes in the house and goes to bed, apparently expecting to have the room to herself, yet her husband's in bed, which he's normally in the basement. So as the story goes, she, put her hand on him and was rubbing him affectionately, and a green light for him, and they make love. Now, it's kind of sketchy as to where it goes from here. So the next morning he gets up and goes off to work, and Shannon's friend Nicole, again, yes, the girlfriend is Nikki and her friend is Nicole. There's lots of people with this name in this story. So Nicole texts and calls Shannon and she doesn't respond, and she's kind of concerned. She's checking up because she knew she had an appointment at her OBGYN for a checkup on the baby, and she's not answering. So Nicole calls Chris and, hey, Shannon's not answering me. Everything's fine, don't worry about it. Well, I'm going to go to the house. No, don't do that. She's fine. I can't remember the exact order, but said somewhere along the lines that she had a play date to take the girls over somewhere and everything's fine. But her friend, knowing that she had this appointment with the doctor, is concerned, and she goes to the house anyway, and she apparently even knows the code to get into their house. But when she tries the code, the bolt, like those kind of like the old chains, but the bolt instead, like at a hotel room, the bolts slid. So the house is locked from the inside. So Nicole can't get in, and she peeks in the garage, and Shannon's car's there, and she can see through the front door that Shannon's shoes that she always wears are there. And so she's getting more and more concerned that something's wrong, because it's very unlike Shannon to not answer. She's attached to her phone. That's her lifeline for work, and she always is pretty good about being able to be reached. So Nicole continues to call Chris at work, and something's wrong, and I think you should come home. No, everything's fine. So she calls the police. Now, Nicole was aware that they were having some marital problems as well. They apparently had talked about this on their trip that they just got home from the previous night. So the police show up, and there's lots of videos available on the internet showing the video from this particular officer's body cam. And, you know, he's asking her questions, and she's answering, you know, this, I'm talking Nicole, you know, explaining the shoes and the car seats, and where would she go with the kids, and why would she not take her phone or answer, all this stuff. And eventually Chris pulls up in his truck. And now, from an outsider's point of view, his wife is missing. And he pulls, you know, it takes him like a really long time to get home with all of the calls going on all morning to him. You know, where is she? So he pulls up, and rather than, you know, as one might expect, racing up to talk to the officers and find out what's going on, he kind of takes his time getting out of his vehicle, and then he goes around to the passenger side and opens the door. Can't see what he's doing on that side of the truck, and then he, you know, kind of saunters up to the officer and doesn't really engage in conversation much. Seems kind of strange behavior. But he opens the garage door, which is apparently their typical way of going in and out of the house, through the garage door rather than, you know, the front door. So he opens up the garage door, and instead of going right in the house, as one again might expect, to rush in and start calling her name and where are you and are you okay or whatever, he opens the passenger side door of her car. And again, you've got all this video footage from the officer's body cam. You can't quite tell what he's doing in her car. But then he goes in the house, and he doesn't invite the officer in through the garage door that he just went in. He just goes in, and I don't know, maybe a minute goes by, and he eventually comes to the front door and opens the front door for the officer to come in. So he had like maybe a minute in the house by himself. So he eventually comes around, opens up the front door, lets the officer in, and this entire thing you can watch for yourself. His body language, facial expressions, his activities are all very odd behavior for somebody who should, one would think, be concerned that his wife and 2 children have gone missing. So, a lot of this time, Chris is staring at his phone, like excessively staring at his phone. He's not making phone calls and calling people, just kind of poking around on it. I suppose he could have been texting. I don't know. But at some point, and again, it's been like several weeks now since I watched all this. So at some point in all of this, Nicole, her son, who's a teenager, she brought him along, finds Shannon's phone in between couch cushions. Okay, this is again very odd, but yeah. And then Chris at some point also finds her wedding ring on the nightstand, and throughout this whole kind of questioning and discussing, the neighbors are catching wind of what's going on, and the next door neighbor says, hey, I've got surveillance cameras all around my place. I've got all the footage. Come check this out. So the police officer and Chris go over to the next door neighbor's house, and for the first time now, Chris starts seeming rather jumpy. He seemed pretty like nonchalant before, non-concerned, and now they're watching the video from him getting ready and leaving for work that morning, and he's avoiding making eye contact with the television. He's kind of fidgety, back and forth from shifting his weight from one leg to the other. All kinds of like body language that he was pretty like calm, cool, and relaxed, it seemed, at the house. Not real worked up about anything. But now the video's on and he's seeming a little nervous. So, again, I can't remember the exact order of events, but he gets questioned at the police station. Gotta ask him some questions, and it comes out that he had an affair while she was gone. And from there, it just gets stranger and stranger. So at some point, they asked him to take a lie detector test. I believe they asked him to come back the following day to take a lie detector test. Now, the friend Nicole, in the meantime, calls the media and, has them go interview Chris at the house to, ask for information, if anybody knows anything, the plea to the public. And again, his behavior seems very odd for somebody whose wife has gone missing. And during this, you can also hear dogs barking, which happen to be the cadaver dogs going through the house. And they're trained to signal evidence of a death in the house by barking. And you can hear the dogs barking during this interview, which he doesn't seem emotional or anything. Smiles a couple times, very odd, but yeah. So I believe it was after that interview that he went in and failed the lie detector test. So that might have been when it came out that he had a mistress, I think. Again, I'm a little confused, but yeah, they start posing some tough questions. And I understand she had this Facebook video thing and you didn't really like that, and she was kind of wore the pants in the family, and you never, felt like you had much say in anything, and domineering woman, yada yada. Well, eventually he begins to crack, and he says, I want to talk to my father, because his dad flew out to be there for him. And he tells his dad that, he had gone downstairs to get ready for work, and he could hear on the baby monitor that she was strangling their little girl. And I don't know if his story was that this was the second of the two girls that he heard her killing the second child, or the first, I don't know, but that he ran upstairs and was so enraged that he then strangled her. So he basically blamed it on Shanann. Well, the plot thickens, so it doesn't take them very long to figure out what's really going on. but his story keeps changing. And then they interview the mistress. All very horrific. Apparently the real story being that he had been having a conversation with her about trying to save the marriage, and back and forth. This is, again, partially historic. We don't really know the true thing yet, but that she got home late. He was up in the shared master bedroom rather than on, down in the basement. They made love. He got up and showered and then came back and talked to her about their marriage, and at some point said that he wanted a divorce, and she became enraged and said, "You'll never see the kids again," and he just snapped and strangled her, and then loaded her up in his pickup truck on the floor of the back seat, extended cab, and then proceeded to go get the girls and put them in the back seat of the car and explained to them that mommy's not feeling very well, and drove out to a job site, which is kind of in the middle of nowhere, farmland, like a prairie, and it had a couple of big holding tanks in which there was, I guess, a mixture of oil and water. Well, so the girls are still alive. He pulls his wife out and lays her on the ground not too far from this gravel, like, parking area, and then goes back to the truck and smothers one girl and then the other, and deposits their remains, one in each of the holding tanks, and then buries his wife and continues his day, including stopping for coffee and other things. And just horrific, unbelievable, horrific. The FBI and CBI, which is the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, and local law enforcement, all of these different law enforcement agencies have continued to interview him after his conviction, which he pled guilty to avoid the death penalty. He was moved to a Wisconsin prison at some point, I guess because of the nature of the crime. He was basically in solitary in Colorado because he wouldn't stand a chance with general population. Baby killers don't last too long. But yeah, so they moved him to Wisconsin, and then they went back and interviewed him again, and he was a little more forthcoming, but still very odd details that are being portioned out. And then talking to the mistress, and her story doesn't match his story. Just really odd story, trying to figure out why this happened. I guess that's the question on everybody's mind, is why? Why not just get a divorce? What made him snap? And that's why these law enforcement investigators are so interested in interviewing him, because he just doesn't match the typical profile of somebody who annihilates their entire family. He's, by all accounts, a quiet, nice guy. Nobody's ever seen him lose his temper. Just, an overall good guy. And it's just horrifying that somebody who seemingly got, everything going pretty well for him. Can, in a matter of a couple of weeks, in theory, that's the story, meet another woman and fall out of love with his wife and in love with somebody else and just want to do what he can to move on with his new woman, start over. Who knows? It's just bizarre. But there are endless videos of theories and analysis of the other videos and actual footage of the surveillance video and the police investigations and interrogations, and you know, it was national news, so there's like Dr. Phil and Dr. Oz and all kinds of people analyzing this to death, and so no shortage of things to watch online in relation to this crime. But yeah, it's really, it had me mesmerized, that's for sure. So yeah, the last two in a row that I've been interested in where you know, the husband and father basically slaughtered his whole family. It's just, whew, it's a lot to take in. But yeah. So anyway, I have gotten off of the true crime now for a while, and now I am watching Orange is the New Black and watching A Handmaid's Tale. Season 3 is out, so those come out on Wednesdays, so I'm watching those, keeping up, and kind of off the true crime kick for the moment. But alright, so if you hadn't ever heard of this, freaky, eh? And for those of you who have, yeah, same thing. Freaky, eh? It's just unbelievable. But that's my take on it. So, but Chris Watts, family slaughter, unbelievable. All right. Not to say hope you enjoyed that, but I hope you found that interesting. And I hope my microphone's pretty good, because that was kind of part of what this was all about too, is see how well this works, because I am diamond painting while I'm talking, so I'm sure that's picking up that in the sound as well. So anyway, till next time, guys. I don't know what's coming next. I have no idea what I'm going to be doing next, but I hope it's something soon. All right, take care.
I wish I hadn't watched that. It wasn't happy at all. I don't like scary things, so yeah, I should have paid attention that I don't have to watch everything she puts out. Sometimes it's just not my cup of tea. Maybe the next one. Okay, see you guys later. Bye-bye.